Hello everyone, I'm Joe Ackourey, and welcome to the Fly of the Week. For this episode, episode 12, I'll be tying a traditional female Hendrickson dry fly. So let's get started. Let's start off by putting the hook in the vise and making sure that the shank of the hook is parallel to the tabletop. And step number one is determining where the wing is going to be set. So I'm using my thread as my indicator. So I'm going to attach the thread to the hook shank and wrap the thread around the shank of the hook until I reach the midway point of the shank. That looks good right about there. Now I'm going to wrap back up toward the eye, half of what I just wrapped. And there you have it. That's the sweet spot right where the wing is going to go, or the 3/4 mark. All right, so for this fly, traditional fly, the female Hendrickson, the wing material that the pattern calls for is wood duck flank. So this is our wood duck flank feather, and I chose this feather. I selected this feather because the natural ends are relatively even, and I'm going to try to use pretty much the whole top of the feather. So I'm going to remove some of this downy fuzz, just like that, a little bit more. And then I'm going to take the feather, clip off the center piece, like that, and I'm going to just carefully gather all those fibers and making sure that they're maintain their evenness, like that. And then I'm going to measure the wing. So we know from previous episodes that the length of the wing is dictated by the shank of the hook, including the eye. So from the eye of the hook back to the back of the shank, right where it meets the bend, is our length we're looking for. So once I have that, I'm going to pop it into that sweet spot that we found with the thread and anchor it. Eight wraps is enough. Make sure that you clip off the excess on an angle. I do that because it tapers down nicely when I cover it with thread. Now, we're going to stand this wing upright, and we're going to build some thread to hold it in that position. Build some thread up in front of that wing, like so. Give it a little pull, get all the fibers together. So now what we got to do is separate that wing in equal bunches, and I'll kind of angle the vise to the camera there. Fan it down a little bit, get your equal bunches. It's a little bit of a task. You're not going to get it absolutely perfect, but you want to get it as close as possible. So now I'm making sure that my thread is behind the wing, and once I have those bunches separated, I'm going to throw the thread forward and in between the wing. And then now the thread is in front of the wing. I'm going to take it from the front and throw it to the back in between the wings. And I'm going to repeat this process a couple times, 3-4 times. That's the figure 8 method. And once I achieve that, I got a nice set of wings as such. So I'm going to pull back on the wings and just lock that figure 8 in with a couple wraps in the front and lock it in the back with a couple wraps. And there you have it, guys. A nice set of separated wings. Now, step 2 is putting the tail in. So we want to get the thread back to the end of the shank, right where it meets the bend. And we need the tailing material calls for medium done. Rooster hackle fibers. So you want to find a hackle whose fiber length is quite long, like this feather I selected here. And typically you'll find a hackle like this on the sides of your neck. I'm going to bring a neck over here and I'll show you. Like, you'll typically find it over on the sides of the neck where the hackle fibers are really long. And that's where I chose this feather from. So in order to get these fibers to line up, you need to gently pull down the fibers on the hackle until they're perpendicular to the stem of the hackle, like so. So now my tail is going to be equal to the shank of the hook, including the eye, because we're proportioning materials to the hook. We did the same thing for the wing, and now we're going to do for the tail. So we have a nice balanced fly. So I like this group here, and using the tips of my fingers, I'm going to grab the tips of the fibers and squeeze really hard and pull the feather away. And then gather your feathers carefully, your fibers carefully. There you have it. There's your tail. So I know that the shank of the hook, including the eye, is my length I'm shooting for. And I'm going to anchor that right there. Very good. Yep. Lock that in. Now, so we have our wings that are equal to the shank of the hook, our tails equal to the shank of the hook, and we're pretty balanced here so far. Everything looks really nice. The proportions are perfect. Now for the body. The body calls for a urine stained red fox, if you can get a hold of some of that, the natural stuff. But I make all my own blends, and you can find all of these on my website. But I have some female Hendrickson fur blend in my hand right here, and I'm going to gently draw out some of this dubbing, and I'm going to attach it to the thread like always. You don't need too much. You can see I don't use any wax. Might have a little bit too much here. Get rid of that little piece. And I kind of wet my fingers a little bit just to get it started. As you can see, how nice. And then just start torquing down back and forth. Going toward the fly and one way going down. There's my perfect dubbing noodle. And I'm going to slide it to the body of the shank of the hook and start building my body. Nice and skinny. Slightly tapered. You do that by just leaning the wraps of fur blend tighter and tighter together. And there's our perfect body. I'm leaving about a 1/16 inch space from the body to the wing so we can place our hackle in there. Remove any excess. Just a little bit there. I'm going to work in there. Very good. Okay, now for the hackle. The hackle is 2 medium done hackles from the rooster. As you can see, I'm going to prepare these hackles now. Draw down the fibers. You want to get rid of all this downy fuzz and any webbing, significant webbing you want to remove. Just draw it down until you expose the stem of the hackle. There's first hackle, and now for the second hackle. Just open up an area that's pretty much web free, and now you're going to join these 2 hackles together so that they line up perfectly where their hackle fibers and stems meet perfectly. And again, notice that there's a natural curve to these feathers. You want them curving down and over the fly when you attach them. Not up and away, down and over the fly. So here we go. Attach your feathers, your hackles where the hackle fibers meet the stem there. And I'm going to ride these stems all the way up toward the eye so that I get a nice distribution, a nice even hackle wraps. I'm not going to crowd the eye. I leave about a 32nd of an inch before the eye. I'm just going to pick up on these stems and cut them off. Now I'm going to begin to wrap the hackles. So wrapping these hackles, there's a little science involved here. And you want to wrap the first hackle, the top one, and you grab the hackle so that it's perpendicular to the hackle with the hackle pliers. That's just like that. And begin wrapping. You get that on off the body and on the shank of the hook there, so to speak. And begin wrapping your first hackle up against the body. Second one's going to be between the wing and the body. Third hackle is going to be right up against the wing. And I'm going to draw these fibers back for the wing and begin wrapping in front. Carefully. And 3 more wraps. 1. And what I want to do is get my thread right up against the wing there and chase the hackle wraps with the bobbin so that when you're overlapping the thread, which makes for a much stronger fly because you're locking down the hackle with each wrap of hackle. You're chasing it with a wrap of thread from the bobbin. Clip off the excess from your first hackle. Now sneak in that thread back up to the wing again. Careful, you won't crush any fibers. Grab your second hackle. Your second hackle is used to fill in any gaps that you missed with the first hackle. Okay. I see a couple little gaps in there. I'm just kind of hunting for them. Here we go. And I'm going to put the remainder in the front. Here, I'm going to chase. I want a nice full. There we go. Full hackled fly. Secure that. Clip off your excess. Make your little tiny head there and tie your finishing knot. Clip off your thread. Get your drop of glue on your knot to secure the knot. Now, I captured a couple hackle fibers with my knot here. I'm going to give it a little tug to pull them out. There we go. See these hackle fibers in the back here? Get rid of them because they're not cooperating with the rest of the group. And just kind of, I call it dressing the fly. That looks pretty good, guys. Well balanced fly. The hackle's in the correct proportion with the wing and the tail. There you go. The traditional female Hendrickson dry fly. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in the next episode. Tight lines, guys.